Well, juvenescence is a description of the new and fast expanding science of longevity. For the first time in human history, people are going to be able to live ultra long lives. Now, we know that some people have lived to 110 and one person's lived to 122 in properly recorded history, but most people don't expect to live much beyond 85. That perception is about to be upended. People are going to be living as a matter of routine to 100, 110, or 120. Sometime within the next 20 years, you will have the life expectancy rising to those levels across the developed world and ultimately in the developing world. And that, of course, will change everything. So juvenescence is a word that encapsulates that science, which is going to lead to those ultra long lives. Well, there are treatments already available which are not widely used but are going to become widely used, which can add to life expectancy almost immediately. Secondly, the diseases of aging, such as cardiovascular disease and cancer, are fast being conquered by medical science. So cancer in 10 to 15 years' time will be either curable or become a chronic disease. It will rarely be a death sentence, and that's a fact. And secondly, cardiovascular disease, which only 30 or 40 years ago was the primary way in which people died on the planet. It still is the primary way in which people die on the planet, but it's going down in terms of its death rate by 2 to 4% per annum. And then you've got all these new treatments which are in development as well, such as gene therapy or stem cells, which are going to have a very big effect on longevity. There are three motivations. One is self-preservation, so in other words, a selfish interest in living longer, because I like living. The second is that this is obviously something that's going to have a huge human impact for the positive, so this is the ultimate ESG investment, if you know what ESG is. And the third thing is obviously we are a commercial organization and we're looking to make returns for our shareholders, of which we are the largest. Okay, so we have 3 partners in our business and 15 employees at the moment. The company started a year and a bit ago. We've raised about $160 million US for our company, and we put in $35 million ourselves of our own money. So it's quite well funded, and we've invested in 18 projects so far, ranging from small molecules, which is the specialization of our team, to stem cells, where, as you may or may not know, we own 46% of Ajax, which has been presenting here at this conference, and Aubrey is the senior vice president there, to organ regeneration. And our first product to go into sick patients will be in the first quarter of next year with a company called Ligenesis, which is working on liver regeneration. So basically we are triaging investments with our team to try and find the most appropriate and best investments to both advance science, to get commercial products into the market, and we're doing that as quickly as we can, given that this is a relatively early stage science from a commercial point of view. And we expect our company to list on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ in early 2020, so we're moving very, very quickly in this field. Well, that's a great question. I mean, who would not want to live in a healthy condition for longer, even if it's only 5 or 10 years? And that is now possible. So for the first time in human history, it's possible to bioengineer humans to get that effect. All the increases in life expectancy up to this point, as you know, have been due to environmental improvements. Now, for the first time, the unveiling of the human genome, the identification of pathways, the use of animals and organisms to manipulate those pathways demonstrates that for sure something is going to work in prolonging human health span. We don't know exactly what yet, but there are some human trials underway at the moment. So that gives us great optimism, and we are very lucky to be the first cohort ever on the planet to have that indulgence that we may be able to live longer in a healthier condition. We recognize that fairly early on. Most people, as you rightly point out, are a bit indifferent to it or don't believe it, but we certainly do believe it, and our history is a good one in biotech. We've set up a number of biotech companies. One is already listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's about nearly a $3 billion US market capitalization. We set up that company 4 years ago, and it has a cure for migraine or migraine, which will be on the market in America next year. So we can demonstrate that we can deliver new drugs and new therapies for human beings, and now we're going to do that in the longevity space. And so we're very excited and very, very focused on that. I don't think there's any upper limit to the amount that could be usefully deployed, but obviously governments are cash constrained. So it's not just governments, it's individuals, it's corporations and so forth should get onto this bandwagon. We're in the dial-up phase of the internet in the early 1980s. We're in the very early stage of this industry. We're at the front end of a huge investment curve. Money will start coming in here. SaluMed has raised a lot of money. Calico has got a lot of money from Google and AbbVie. We've raised quite a lot of money, and there are a number of other companies like Unity and Restore Bio that have raised money. But this is just the beginning of what will be an enormous amount of money coming in. The UK government, I'm a British citizen, has devoted £300 million to this area under the auspices of Oxford University and Sir John Bell. The German government should do the same. Governments across Europe should do the same, so that this is not just an American science, not just something that belongs to California or to Texas. It needs to be a universal science. So I fully endorse the aims and motivations of your party, and I wish you very well in the forthcoming election. I didn't say we were going to live to 150. I said that we are, as a matter of course, going to live to 110 to 120. It is possible that someone is alive today who's going to live to 150. In fact, I think it's very likely. But let's just say that the rest of us are going to live to 110 or 120. There are three elements to the planning. One is you need to plan your finances, because most people think they're going to die at 85. If you live to 120, that's another 35 years of life. So you've got to have enough money to sustain yourself, which is in part why we've written this book with investments that will take you through that period. The second thing is that you're going to have a lot more time. It's like waking up in the morning, and instead of having 24 hours, you'll have 36 hours in which to conduct your affairs. And that means that you're going to have to fill that time. You can't be working all the time, and indeed you'll probably be working less. So leisure activities, hobbies, education will become much more important in that world of ultra long lives. And the third thing is that family life will take on a different dimension. Women will have children later because fertility is going to be altered so that they can have children later in life. And family choices will be much more different to the way in which they're conducted today. The book took a lot of research. This is by far the hardest one because this is not an established science. It's a science in flux and in development, and even the scientists themselves don't agree on the basic core premises. So we researched this book by driving around the US for months on end, visiting all the key opinion leaders, and we have visited almost all of them, and also the ones in Europe. Put all the thoughts together, had the book scientifically reviewed multiple times, and we've come to a conclusion that indeed people will be living these ultra long lives based on science. So the scientific part of the book, which is the first part of it, is by necessity quite dense, but it's worth people reading because this is what's going to affect every single one of us on the planet. The second part is the investment part, where to invest, both to make money from this science, but also to sustain you in this very long life. And the third part is a statement about what you should do to be conditioned so that you can live the next 10, 20, 30 years to take advantage of these therapies. And some of that is fairly obvious, but it's useful to have it distilled in one compendium. So we've written a primer about longevity for really everyone, lay people, investors, and people who've got relatives perhaps who could do with some advice, basically. Quite honest, but of course juvenescence has caught a particular wave because the stuff that can keep you and me alive to 110 or 120 potentially is actually in trials today. So this is not science fiction. For the first time ever, this is a possibility that's going to happen. So in terms of the book, All the proceeds have gone to longevity charities, and we've been supporting a number of those. And it's sold very well. In contrast to my previous books, which are piled up in various warehouses and available for nothing if you want them, this one is sold out and it's been reprinted. So I'm very happy about that. And we're actually going to produce a new edition in May or June, which I've almost finished writing now. So yeah, that's super exciting. And then, of course, my partners and I, who've been working together in biotech for a long time, created a new company called Juvenescence around the same time. And we've raised it's a company, it's not a fund, we've raised about $150 million US, which is an astonishingly large amount for a startup venture capital studio, really. And we've made some wonderful investments, hired great people. Greg Beatty is the CEO, I'm the chairman, and Dec Dugan, who is a magnificent human being, is the chief medical officer. And the company that we started 4 years ago, the same team, which we invested $3 million in for 54%, is now worth $2.5 billion on the New York Stock Exchange. So we have very high hopes for Juvenescence. It's not available to retail investors yet, but we hope to take it public sometime in the next year or so.
Yeah, because I was looking at some of the articles that are out there, and Dr. Alex Zarannikov,
I can never pronounce it. Zakharonov.
Yeah, Professor Alex was saying potentially going to IPO at some point soon. So that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, well, Alex has got a different company, but we are a big investor in his company. That's called In Silico Medicine. Yeah. It's here at the Master Investor.
It is, yeah.
It takes a picture and tells you how old you are biologically. It's called Young AI. Anyway, Alex is probably going to take his company public ahead of us.
Right.
And we're very happy with what he's been getting up to in terms of developing novel compounds using artificial intelligence.
Okay. So within the Juvenescence portfolio, you've invested in quite a large sphere of AI, discovery, drug discovery, aging, sort of
stem cells.
Could you just talk to us about some of those, please?
Yeah, okay, so there are a few things that are going to keep us alive longer and in better health, most importantly in better health, because you don't want to be really old and infirm for 20 or 30 years extra. You want to be robust for those extra years. So one is small molecule drugs, and there are quite a few in development now, including by us. And these are drugs to, for instance, remove senescent cells from your body. I think you know what they are. Cause a lot of inflammation for old people. That's in close proximity, I think, to commercialization in the next few years. Then there's organ regeneration, and as an example, one of our companies will be in sick patients in the first quarter of next year to regenerate the liver. Now what they do is they take a piece of someone else's liver, a dead person's liver, just a small piece, and they insert it into a lymph node. And the idea is that a brand new liver grows in one of your lymph nodes. And you've got plenty of lymph nodes. We've each got 500 or 600. Now, you might say that's science fiction, but the FDA is allowing it to go into sick patients because it's being trialled in about 600 animals, including dogs and pigs. And every single one of the trials has been successful. There hasn't been one single failure. So we're super excited about that, because if you can regrow the liver, you might be able to regrow the kidney, the pancreas, or there's so many people with failing organs around the world, and that's just astonishing, right? Yeah. And then the stem cells, right? Everyone's heard about stem cells. They're coming into their own now. We bought 46% of a now public company called Ajax. They're here at the Master Investor Show. They're really worth looking at. Mike West is one of the great innovators in science. He has 200 patents to his name. And they are working on tissue regeneration and other aspects of aging using stem cells. So we're very excited about that. And then you've got, of course, ultimately gene therapy, which is the editing of our genomes. CRISPR-Cas9 was discovered about 7 years ago. It's been commercializing very quickly. Ultimately, you and I will have our in vivo, in other words, as live human beings, have the negative genes in our bodies that cause the pathways of aging and infirmity adjusted by using CRISPR-Cas9. So this is a wonderful time to be alive. All you have to do is to stay on that healthy bridge. You know what. I mean, Evil was just on TV talking about how he drinks 4 bottles of wine a day. That's probably a little bit too much. One's enough, all right? No smoking, a bit of exercise, eat healthily. You can do that, and you can stay alive. Of course you can, Peter. I know I can as well. Then we're going to be living to 110 or 120, or perhaps even beyond. So super exciting time to be alive. So that's one thing.